Perfect. So, hello everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Um, we're starting at 1 o'clock for the British time. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Karen, and I'll be here representing BMI and THE student. Today, we're joined by Anna and Catherine. They both are here on behalf of the Imperial College and the University of Cambridge. If you guys are considering probably coursing a master's degree or a PhD in the UK, you are in the right place. So today we are going to learn about different academic opportunities, different programs from these institutions, funding and support services that these prestigious universities has to offer you. Please don't forget that we are recording this session and we will send it to you at the end of the webinar. Also, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If you want, please don't be shy. Feel free to drop all your questions at the Q&A box here at the menu at the bottom of the screen, and we will get back to them at the end of the presentation. Welcome, Anna and Catherine. We are really happy to have you here.
Hola, hi everyone. Thank you very much for that introduction. It's great to be here, and we're very excited to have this joint session for you today. My name is Anna, and I work for the University of Cambridge. I support prospective applicants for both undergraduate and postgraduate studies here at Cambridge. I support them with information about application process, advice, funding, and other guidance that might be relevant for your journey, application journey. And we have here with me Catherine as well.
Hi everyone, lovely to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. So yes, I'm Catherine. I'm the International Student Recruitment Manager at Imperial, and I have the responsibility of advising students from Latin America, South America as well. So very similar to Anna, very happy to help answer your questions that might come up after this session, as well as obviously we hope to kind of cover a lot of the information during this webinar. Should we get going, Anna? Fantastic.
Sure.
So what we will do is I will be starting off with a bit of an introduction to kind of postgraduate study in the UK, kind of what you can expect, how it might be a little bit different, and some of the kind of need to know information about kind of thinking about looking to apply to us and the kind of process. Anna is then going to go into detail about the actual academic application process. So we'll give you lots of hints and tips about kind of what you need to look out for and how to prepare your application, and then we'll both give an introduction to our two universities and then finish up with the question and answer session as mentioned. So as we said, please do put your questions in the chat throughout. Next slide, please. So as I said, we'll kick off with a bit about kind of graduate study, postgraduate study in the UK. So we thought we'd start off with why you might actually want to think about studying in the UK for a master's or for a PhD. Well, first things first, we do want to kind of reassure you that the academic kind of quality, the academic level, it really is there when it comes to considering studying in the UK. In terms of kind of global kind of top universities, you'll find a huge number are from the UK, including the two here today, Imperial and Cambridge, very highly ranked and regarded, both in terms of teaching and also research excellence. You know, what is being produced at British universities really is having a world impact. We're also incredibly proud of the fact that we are very internationally diverse universities and very welcoming to international students as well. Each of our universities have students from all across the globe, well over 100, you know, often 120, 140 different nationalities on campus. And we think that really kind of enriches your study experience. You're getting ideas and perspectives from around the globe, meaning that you're not just going to get a degree that is relevant to the UK. You're going to have a degree that will be relevant no matter where you want to go afterwards. You also have networks and friendship groups from across the globe afterwards. Also in the UK, we very much kind of pride ourselves on the kind of added value experience of your time with us. So yes, you're coming to do, an academic kind of study, but it's not going to be about sitting there just writing notes in lectures and repeating them in exams. It's all about that kind of experiential learning. There'll be opportunities potentially to do things like sort of research, internships, for example, as well as all the kind of added student experiences as well, things like the student union for activities, clubs and societies that can be very kind of relevant to your academic experiences as well. We'll talk more about the kind of degree setup in a moment, but you will find degrees in the UK can be shorter than in other countries. So that can be an added bonus in terms of getting out to the world of work again that bit quicker, and can potentially mean it's a good option financially if you're comparing to the US, for example. And we do kind of really pride ourselves on ensuring that we do set you up for the world of work afterwards as well. So whether that's kind of support through career services or in terms of kind of the actual content of the degree being very relevant to employers, our graduates are highly sought after, as I said, internationally after they leave us as well. Next slide, please. So just to kind of break down that kind of progression of UK university degrees, as I mentioned, they can be shorter than in some countries. So on average, a bachelor's degree is going to take you 3 years in duration. However, in terms of what we're looking for, and Anna will talk a bit more about this, the duration of your programme may need to be more than that, depending on where you've gained your bachelor's from. But in the UK, it's a 3-year option. To then go on to do a master's, it is the next step in the process in terms of that higher level. And normally a master's is 1 year in duration full time. There are exceptions to that. There's always exceptions to the rule, but generally a master's is 12 calendar months in England and in the UK. After the master's, then you're looking at a PhD, and that normally really is the process that you will need a master's before you look at doing the PhD. And that's because the PhD in the UK is a pure piece of research. So it's only going to be 3 or 4 years really focusing on that research side of things. So there's not any sort of teaching involved, because that's kind of assumed the knowledge is gained in that master's. So that's the kind of general progression. Next slide, please. So as we kind of started about, so generally the Masters in the UK is 1 year in duration. You will find some exceptions, but you'll see also then a range of kind of acronyms. We love, an acronym in academia, but in terms of kind of the names of the various Masters. So many actually do mean the same. You just want to look at the content of the programme, but some broad kind of ones that you might come across are things like an MA or an MSc, a Master of Arts and a Master of Science. They are the same level qualification. They just normally refer to a specific subject area. So a Master of Arts is something like the humanities side of things, an MSc, Master of Science, potentially engineering, those kind of subjects. Highlight the MRes as that is a Master of Research. So this is something you often find in the sciences, and it potentially doesn't have a teaching component. It is about carrying out research for the duration of the 1 year programme, but it is different to the PhD. So you will see sort of masters are kind of determined as either taught or research or combined. So you want to look at the kind of content of those programmes. On average, what we call a taught master's, you'll be looking at kind of around 9 months of the sort of teaching component with a 3-month thesis towards the end of it. In terms of how you're graded, it's normally based on a pass, merit, or distinction. So the various kind of levels that you can achieve. It is normally then required for that doctoral study, so that the next step for the PhD. But if you don't want to go on to do a PhD, then a master's will very much set you up for the world of work, and is, as I said, very much globally recognised. If you want to leave us, go to different countries, return home, a master's degree is very much recognised worldwide. Next slide, please. So moving on to doctoral studies, so basically the PhD, a doctorate, is that kind of pure piece of research I mentioned. So as I said, it's generally 3 to 4 years full time. It depends a little bit on how long it kind of takes for you to write up and defend your thesis. But as I mentioned, that requirement to have the master's level is because you don't normally do the teaching component in this particular degree. So you need to be prepared that you're going to be conducting research either in a group or potentially individually, and continuing to do that research throughout. You're not going to be necessarily sort of gaining taught knowledge during that PhD. It's about your research contributing to that particular field of study, either in that kind of research group environment or indeed your own kind of research. So it's really about you adding to that field of study rather than that learning component in the sort of taught masters setting. You do sometimes come across programs that are automatically set up as a master's and a PhD. So you apply via the master's and normally then continue on to the PhD. So it's worth looking out for those as well. Otherwise, you can do a master's and then basically look to apply for a PhD separately. So normally the PhD, of course, you would need a relevant master's to apply for that. But Anna will talk about the application process a bit more later. Funding may be available, and we've got a slide about that as well, but it's just to say it's not automatically part of a PhD offer. Funding is sometimes or quite often a separate part to consider. So being offered a place on a PhD doesn't always mean you will have funding associated with it. Next slide, please. So just to kind of highlight the support that you can expect whilst you're studying with us. So I mentioned about kind of careers. So we have fantastic career support services. They have really strong links with industry and government and relevant employers to our graduates. So we have career support teams who will be out there making connections with employers who really highly value our graduates. They'll do things like careers fairs, resume workshops, sort of mentoring sort of opportunities. So there's lots of opportunities to really sort of think of that long-term career when you are studying with us. Of course, you'll have lots of opportunities to get to the library. So obviously these days, lots of things are online, but we still love a good old-fashioned library. And you will, of course, have kind of, wider university facilities, but also those very special kind of unique specialised libraries that are very relevant to the particular area of study that you're looking at. To mention that community of international students as well, so both British and international students, we really kind of try and foster that community feeling on campus through sort of student activities. You're likely to also have kind of graduate only activities available to you. So whether that's sort of networking opportunities, skills workshops, there's that sort of added extra to meet other graduate students during your time, as well as students across the university who have similar interests to you through sports, music, social activities as well. And then to highlight as well, there is a dedicated international student support team as well. So as well as all the general support you'll get through your university, through your academic departments, programme leaders, department support as well, you'll then have a team who are there just for international students. So we'll talk a little bit about the visa application process, but they will be your port of call for anything from starting to look at your visa application right through to your experience on the university campus, settling into life in the UK and meeting other international students as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of costs, this will really vary depending on the university and indeed by the degree programme. Probably unsurprisingly, higher ranked universities do charge more than lower ranked universities, but you will find a real kind of breadth in the UK. And then often there is a difference between how much is charged for programmes that are more sort of classroom based, so humanities style programmes, versus those that need more sort of technical equipment, for example. So programs like sciences, engineering that have more lab-based experiences generally will be on the more expensive side of things. But then you do have programs like MBAs and business school programs tend to be on the more expensive side as well. Beyond the tuition fees, so when you're seeing on the individual university websites, on the individual degree programs, the costs, this is normally the tuition fee associated with that individual degree program. On top of that, you have to bear in mind that you will need to support yourself, so that living cost on top. So the tuition fee really is just attending the university. Things like accommodation is a separate cost. So you'll have to budget for that, look at the different options. In terms of accommodation, there is a lot of options there. For postgraduate students, it doesn't normally come automatically for all students, but it can depend on the university. So you might look at graduate-only halls of residence or look at the private sector as well. And the universities do support you in doing this, but again, it's not always automatically part of an offer to study with us. In terms of kind of earning money when you are in the UK, on your visa, you can work 20 hours per week on a master's programme, but it doesn't, but what we say is we don't recommend planning to work that much. You know, these are intense programmes of study, you know, PhD is incredibly intense as well. So planning to work a lot, particularly in that master's, being that 1 year, isn't a good idea in terms of the likelihood it will have a negative impact on your studies. But you may find that certain times of the year may be quieter. So, you know, over, say, you know, holiday periods, where you have a bit more capacity, you might want some flexible work where you can pick up some extra hours. So in terms of permission to work, there is no limit in terms of you can work off campus, you can work in an environment to get experience for your long-term career, or it could be, you know, a coffee shop, in a pub, sort of retail. So there's no kind of limits in terms of the type of work that you can be carrying out. You just want to think about that balance between your studies and capacity to then potentially earn as well. So we certainly kind of say, don't come planning to fund your studies by working. This should be kind of an extra kind of bit to kind of you know, sort of top up your funding. Next slide, please. So speaking of funding opportunities, so please do your research, please do it nice and early. It's not automatic, as I said, in terms of necessarily being, you know, offered to study at one of our universities. Funding doesn't always come automatically. So the earlier you can do your research, the better. So you might find there is funding attached to certain PhDs, for example. So the UK government will potentially be putting money towards a certain area of research. And therefore we have what we call studentships, where we have positions for PhD candidates to come and study and research in this particular area, and there is money attached to that. That's not always the case, and it can be limited for international students potentially. So do have a look what's available, but make sure you're kind of looking at the fine print as well. There are external scholarships, so these are some kind of large funding bodies that may sound familiar. There are some very, you know, country specific, so called Futuro for Colombia, for example, Pronobec for Peru, and ones like Chevening that are more kind of overarching from the UK government for international students to come and study. So do kind of look at those. Also loan providers, but do your own research into those. Do then have a look at our own university websites. So we do put everything we know about on our funding pages. So it might be that, you know, particular areas of study, particular programs, particular departments have funding available, or you might find there are kind of college or university-wide funding options. So please do your research. Sometimes those scholarship deadlines can be earlier than the academic kind of application deadlines. So again, as I said, best thing to do is start looking at this as early as possible to make sure you are maximising the opportunities available. I would also highlight something at the bottom there called the Alternative Guide to Postgraduate Funding as well. So this is actually an external database that through some universities you can access for free. Otherwise, it's kind of like a $40 sort of access fee if you just want to have a look. And it's a database of all sorts of scholarships that have been collated by an individual who set up this database. He actually funded both his master's and PhD through finding lots of pots of money that basically were untapped. People didn't know about them because they were very niche. And he since then collated all these scholarships together into a database. Now, these scholarships aren't going to be ones that will cover all your tuition fees and kind of cover all your living costs, but they will be worth a few £1,000s here, a few $1,000s there, and can very, you know, if you bring them together, can help support your funding. So again, please do your research into that as well, as it may be able to, you know, just get you over the line in terms of those extra sort of funding opportunities in there. Next slide, please. So just to, very kind of sort of general introduction to the visa. So to come and study in the UK, unless you hold a UK passport, you will need an international student visa. Now, I've said about being nice and early and researching into the scholarships nice and early, and you can certainly be prepared and kind of research things around the visa nice and early. But actually, the visa application happens quite late in the whole process. So you can't actually apply for your visa until you have an unconditional offer to study with us. So we'll talk about the application process and how that all works. But potentially, if you're applying to us without having finished your studies, your undergraduate studies, it might be that we offer you what we call a conditional offer. So you still need to finish your studies to come to us. At that point, you can't actually apply for your visa. You need to wait until you've met all the conditions we've set for you, and your offer is what we call unconditional. At that point, the admissions team from that specific university will send you through what we call a CAS number, a confirmation of acceptance of studies. This is basically a number that tells the visa, the immigration teams that you are a genuine student and you are attached to a specific university and a specific program. So that's why we can't issue that until we know you are definitely, set up to come and study with us. So with this CAS number, you can then apply for your visa. You will need to book an appointment with a visa application centre. There is a fee attached to the visa application, as well as then what we call the immigration health surcharge. Basically, it's an extra payment you need to make at the point of applying for your visa. But what it means is then you have access to the National Health Service. You have access to healthcare when you are in the UK. So you don't need to worry about kind of sort of health insurance setup. You will have access to that. So definitely, again, do your research, make sure you get all your paperwork kind of together, but do bear in mind that you can't actually apply for your visa until quite late in the process, after we've done all the academic side of things, which I believe is what we're going to be moving on to very shortly.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was very helpful, and we hope you found that very useful as well. So we covered the postgraduate study in the UK in terms of types of qualifications, funding available, student visa, and so on. I'm going to talk to you a bit today about the UK postgraduate application process in general. And we have here a summary for both the master's application process and the PhD application process. Bear in mind, this is quite in general terms, and each institution will have specific requirements. But this is, as a whole, this is what you will need to think about before you start your application process. As Catherine was mentioning, for example, for a master's in the UK, this is a 1-year course usually, but you will need to apply 1 year before. That's when the application process starts. So just bear that in mind. So if you are thinking of applying for a master's at either University of Cambridge or Imperial or another UK university, you'll have to choose your course and of course check the entry requirements. So these differ depending on the institution. I know some of you are joining us today from Mexico. So for example, we require both Cambridge and Imperial requires 8.5 out of 10 as a minimum entry requirement for a master's course, and we'll talk to you about that in a second as well. But you have to really be careful about those entry requirements, and that can depend on the course you apply for and the institution you apply for as well. To check any deadlines. So this can be course deadlines, and as Catherine mentioned, there are separate funding applications as well that have their own deadlines too. So it's really important for you to check early, like Catherine said, and to not leave this until the last second, especially for the funding deadlines. For example, Cambridge has a either early December or early January funding deadline. I know Imperial might have different deadlines depending on the scholarships you're planning to apply to as well. So it's important for you to familiarize yourself with that in advance and ensure you don't miss that deadline in case you need the funding. For Cambridge in particular, you'll need to also choose your college, but I'll be talking to you about that in a second when I'm going to introduce Cambridge and explain what a college is. But for other universities such as Imperial, you will not need to do this step to choose a college. both of our universities have an online application system, so it's quite easy. You'll just have to start your online application through the university website. You just have to create an account, set up the account, log in, and then you'll find all the steps in there with guidance as well. You'll have to think about referees. That's the fifth step. So referees are people, usually academics, that can talk about your suitability for the course you're applying for. So you'll have to think about who can talk about your own academic achievements that are related to the course you're planning to apply to. So it doesn't have to be the vice chancellor or the rector of a university necessarily. It has to be somebody who knows you, who has taught you in your class, for example, and can comment on your academic ability related to the course you're applying for. You usually need two referees. For a master's application as well as a PhD application. So you'll need to think about two people and approach them in advance so that they're aware you're asking them for this reference. There's a lot of information that we provide in terms of what they will need to include in that reference as well, but they'll need to be aware of any deadlines too. The next step will be to write your statement of purpose, or how we call it, personal statement. We actually have some general information on the next slides about that, but just so you're aware, you'll need to check any word limit for that. And basically, it's just a statement where you can say why you want to study the course you're applying for and what recommends you, how you are a good fit for that course. But we have specific advice about that in the following slides. You'll also need to think about any other supporting evidence, and we gave some examples here. So apart from your personal statement, in your online application, you'll have to upload such as transcripts. So this shows your academic record from your first year of undergraduate degree in your home country until the last year. Usually they have to be uploaded in original format, but also translated in English. So you'll have to check carefully the guidance for each institution that you're planning to apply to. You'll most probably will have to submit an English language certificate as well. Again, this depends on the university. When you apply, you don't necessarily need to have that English language certificate, but that depends on the course as well. For example, at Cambridge, if you're planning to apply for Masters of Law or Corporate Law, you must have that English certificate when you submit your application. So again, it's just making you think about the timeline and what you need and when. Other examples of supporting evidence include CVs, and it could be other stuff as well, but just make sure you understand the required format. For example, at Cambridge, you'll need this in PDF format, less than 2 megabytes and not encrypted. This is just an example so that you're not caught off guard and to not leave everything until the last second. The system might crash or you might not accept your document. So just being aware of that. You'll next need to check application fees. These can be different depending on the course you apply for or the level, master's versus PhD, and then you can submit your application in full. Some courses will have interviews, so if applicable, you will be invited to an interview. At Cambridge, for example, most of these interviews are online, so you don't need to worry about traveling all the way to the UK to have the interview. But again, that depends on the course you apply for, the institution you apply for as well, and then you'll find out what the decision is of your application. This is a very quick summary of this application process. Of course, it has a lot more information than that, but for PhD, the application process is very similar. I will just highlight the differences here. So of course, you'll need to choose your course, but the difference here is that you need to think of a research area. As Catherine mentioned, a PhD does not have a taught element, so it is mainly your research project for at least 3 years. Either a PhD or a master's by research that is fully focused on research, you'll need to think about the research group. And also you'll need to check, very important, if the department recommends contacting a potential supervisor. This will be critical in your application. And if the department recommend you to contact a potential supervisor in advance of your application. You'll have to approach a supervisor. So how do you do that? What we advise is that you have a look at the department you're planning to apply to and the research areas within that department. Look at the profiles of the academic members of staff from that department and identify some of the members of staff, of academic staff that have research interests that coincide with your interests. So whatever you want to study in whatever research area, you'll have to find a supervisor who is an expert or has some research experience in that research area. Check if they accept students for supervision, and if they do, don't be afraid to contact them. I know a lot of students say they are a bit uncomfortable or they don't feel really okay to email them, but they are expecting you to do that. They are aware of the process and they are expecting you to contact them via email. We do recommend you to be quite formal, concise, straightforward, and in your email you can outline what your research proposal is, your research idea, and how that relates to their own research field, and also what your plans are for that, your passion for the subject. Don't be discouraged if you don't hear straight back. Don't be afraid to follow up. And if they do say no, don't be discouraged about that. They might have a limited number of students they can supervise that year as well. And you can ask them who else could supervise your research if they know somebody else who can help you with the supervision. Just to say, if a supervisor agrees to supervise you, that doesn't mean you have an offer. They agree to supervise you, then they encourage you to go through the next steps that I just explained for the master. So checking the courses and starting your online application and putting their name down, but this doesn't mean you're automatically receiving an offer, just so you're aware. Same as what Catherine was saying, if you get an offer for a PhD, it doesn't mean that you automatically have funding for that PhD as well. So be aware of those distinctions and be aware of the different timelines for scholarships applications and the actual course applications as well. So once you've gone through these steps, you start your online application for the university website, you approach referees, same like with the master's. You think about the personal statement again, but what's different again here is that you'll need to think about writing your research proposal if required. So I think from some of the pre-submitted questions from you, you did ask what are your tips for actually writing a good research proposal. And what we would say is that it's quite key here to check the information from the department you're planning to apply to, because they will tell you what they are expecting you to write in that research proposal. That's quite key. And if you're not sure, you can also contact that department to double check. Usually a research proposal includes an outline of what your research idea is, a bit of the literature in the field, so what has been happening in that research field, what is the gap that you're trying to fill, how does that fit in with the research areas at that institution in that department, and what is your timeline for that? How are you planning to approach that project, and what are your timescales? But like I said, the key thing here is to check with the department and check what they are asking you to write in that research proposal. They might have word limits and so on. So make sure you check all of that information in advance. And of course, once you have that research proposal, you'll upload that as well as other supporting evidence we just talked about in the application process. Again, the application fee, submitting it, interviews, and then the decision is the same as with the master's application process. So we are aware these are quite a lot of steps, but it's good to have the big picture so that you know when you will have to start looking at that and what sort of information you need to gather. So don't let everything until the last moment, because it can be quite a lot of information you need to send over. For the purpose of this webinar, we'll just focus on the on the personal statement. But before I go to that, in terms of the entry requirements, we have here 2 QR codes that will take you to our own university's websites where you can find the international entry requirements. So if you're planning to apply for a master's, for example, you usually need to have a licenciatura, grado de licenciado. It depends on in which country you are from, with a strong GPA. This is usually 4 years long. So remember how Catherine was saying in the UK, an undergraduate degree is 3 years long. You will need to have this licenciatura or undergraduate degree in your own country of 4 years long. And the GPA depends on the country you're coming from, and you can have a look at these in the QR code. So like I said, for Mexico, you'll need a minimum of 8.5 out of 10, for example. You'll need to think about those English language requirements. So for example, at Cambridge, we accept IELTS with usually they require a 7 or a 7.5 overall with no component under 7. Again, that depends on the course you're applying for, so it's very important for you to double check that. And then you'll think about the academic technology approval scheme. This is only for certain degrees related to science, engineering, or technology, and the university will give you some guidance on when to apply for that as well. In terms of applying for a PhD, you usually need to have a relevant master's, like Catherine was saying. I know some of you did ask this before when you signed up to this session. You asked whether you need to have a master's in order to apply for a PhD. The answer is usually yes, you are expected to have that, but some programs might accept students that only have an undergraduate degree. They might have relevant research experience or any other relevant experience that recommends them for a PhD. So again, you'll have to check the individual course you're trying to apply to at either Cambridge or Imperial and check what their minimum requirements are. But usually, yes, you'll need a master's to apply for a PhD. And again, the English language requirements and the ATAS, the Academic Technology Approval Scheme, for some degrees will also come under entry requirements for the PhD as well. So as I was saying, we know there's a lot of information. We just did a spotlight here on writing a personal statement. Very quickly, you'll need to think about your current studies. So your degree, what is your degree, what subject areas you're studying, what sort of technical skills you gained, and what other projects you've done during your current studies or the studies you've just finished. Why you want to study the master's, so what is your academic motivation, how do you want to use this master in your career, and just show that you know what the course is about, and show that you've done your research on the course in the sense that you understand what the course is about. And then, of course, just mention why this university, why this research area in particular, and what you will gain from studying at that university. And finally, talk about your past experiences. So what sort of activities have you done? What skills have you gained? And how have those skills that you gained will help you in this course, just to show that you are a suitable fit for the course you're applying for. If you want to see more application information, you can follow these links here for both Cambridge and Imperial, and we have more extensive information on this as well. So I'll pass now on to Catherine, who will talk a bit about the Imperial College London.
Yeah, thanks so much, Anna. So yes, we just now wanted to give you a kind of a brief introduction to our two universities, some of the highlights, kind of what you can expect if you do decide to apply and come and study with us. So starting with Imperial. So Imperial is quite a unique university, being the only one in the UK to solely focus on science, engineering, medicine and business. So it's a really exciting environment to be studying those programs, kind of interdisciplinary working between those areas. But yes, quite a unique community. And we are doing very well in terms of kind of our global recognition at the moment, which we're very proud of. Next slide, please, Anna. So just a little kind of overview about us. So we were founded as a university in 1907. We're actually founded with a mission to be useful. And that's kind of what we think we are being by offering those kind of subject areas. So we're looking at kind of pushing boundaries in science and engineering, the medical world, with that kind of business acumen and entrepreneurship to get that message out there as well. We're sort of a medium-sized university when you kind of look at UK universities, so we're about 23,000 students, and roughly half of those are graduate students. So it's a big graduate kind of population. We, as I mentioned, have 4 faculties. We do have 9 campuses technically. We're very much kind of a London-based university. A number of those campuses are kind of medical campuses, so attached to specialised hospitals. So our main campuses are South Kensington and also White City in central London, but then some of those more specialised campuses as well. Next slide, please. So we are an incredibly international, outward-looking university, but we very much make the most of our location in London. So we would really say there is no better place to be than a student in London. London has been ranked as the best student city in the world a number of times by the QS World Rankings. It's a really internationally diverse city with hundreds of languages spoken, people and students from around the world. And also really connected if you do want to explore other parts of Europe. Thinking about kind of long-term, kind of the careers you might want to get involved in, there's all sorts of industries for you to network with and make connections with whilst you are a student at one of our a university in London. There's also then all the kind of sort of added benefits, the sort of social programs, the kind of extra kind of museums, galleries on your doorstep, which are generally free. And where our South Kensington campus is, we're right next to places like the Natural History Museum, the Science Museum, and the Victoria and Albert Museum. So world-renowned universities completely free on your doorstep. Next slide, please. So I mentioned we're all about science, engineering, medicine and business, but we offer a very wide range of programmes within that kind of specialised focus. So we have 10 different engineering departments ranging from aeronautical through to electrical, mechanical, for example. Next slide. In the Faculty of Natural Sciences, we have a sort of general sciences you would expect, so chemistry, a wide range in the life sciences, mathematics, physics. We also have our Centre for Environmental Policy as well, which is quite unique, really kind of inviting students from a whole range of disciplines to come and look at environmental policy. So we have students who come from kind of legal backgrounds, from science backgrounds, from humanities backgrounds, to really kind of come together to look at environmental policy. Next slide, please. We then have a wide range of graduate programmes in our Faculty of Medicine, from your kind of more sort of clinical programmes, so areas in the sort of brain sciences, for example, the Institute of Clinical Sciences, very specialised areas in the National Heart and Lung Institute, to then more, again, the policy side of things with the School of Public Health. Next slide, please. And then we have our business school, which has a range of programmes in the finance area, areas such as innovation and entrepreneurship, that are very much kind of open to students who don't come from a business background, for example. So it can be an introduction to the business world through programmes like our management programmes and innovation and entrepreneurship, and then those kind of more specialist programmes like strategic marketing, for example, as well as a full range of MBA programmes as well. Next slide, please. And then we, as well as this, we kind of bridge the gap between the kind of sciences, engineering, the business side with medicine through our Global Challenge Institute. So this just kind of gives an illustration of how we think as a university we can be useful and really tackle some of those global challenges. So areas like the Energy Futures Lab, the Institute for Global Health and Innovation, the Institute of Infection. So how can we tackle some of those big challenges in the world? We bring together the experts from those different faculties to collaborate on these challenges together. Next slide, please. And as I said, we do pretty well in terms of rankings, but also in terms of that research focus as well. So the Research Excellence Framework is a kind of audit of the quality of British research that goes on at British universities. There's another one coming up quite shortly. The last one was in 2021, but basically the research going on at Imperial was classed as the greatest proportion of world-leading research of British universities. So what we're doing at Imperial really is pushing boundaries and really is having an impact on those big challenges I spoke about. Next slide, please. research, pure research is very much kind of at the heart of what we do, but also with that mindset of being linked to industry. So again, it's that idea of being useful about what we're producing, what we're researching, what we're teaching isn't just kind of for the sake of it, isn't just for the theory, but it is about kind of being ready to kind of hit the world of work for producing graduates who are ready to walk into industry, who can answer those questions that industry is looking for. And around this as well, we have this kind of idea of our students basically going and producing things on their own. So we know that they're incredibly bright and have fantastic ideas, and we want to kind of enable them to make those ideas into a reality. So we've set up something called our Enterprise Lab, which basically is a kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem. So students can go along and kind of share ideas, take part in mentorship schemes, make and create in kind of hack spaces, take part in competitions to basically see if their ideas could actually be, the solution, a novel solution to a major problem, or set up their own company. So since the Enterprise Lab was founded in 2017, there have been 337 student startup companies, and as you can see, over £500 million of investment raised. So more and more of our students are going on and kind of carving out their own path, using kind of the opportunities available at Imperial. And final slide from me, please, Anna. And this just gives you a kind of taste of kind of the wide range of areas that our graduates do go into. So some may be using, directly the knowledge gained at Imperial, but as I said, more are looking to then potentially kind of look at going on to kind of the entrepreneurial side, starting up their own businesses as well. So our graduates do a whole range of things all around the world after they leave us. With that, I'll pass over to Anna to talk through about Cambridge.
Thank you very much, Catherine. For Cambridge, what I'm going to focus on is what makes us unique compared to other UK universities, and that will be the collegiate system. So, of course, we are highly ranked academically with high quality of teaching, and we are ranked top 5 in the world. But what differentiates us is this collegiate community, and we have 31 colleges here at Cambridge. A college is basically a smaller community within the overall university community. You will be applying to a department, but then you'll have to choose one of your colleges as well. And colleges have their own accommodation for postgraduate students, or you can live in private rented accommodation, but still get involved in a college. They have additional support available in colleges, as well as a range of a lot of clubs, societies, facilities on site, and so on. We have about 11,000 postgraduate students at Cambridge, and about 60% of these come from over 130 countries, including Latin America. We have student societies such as the Brazilian Student Society or Mexican student societies too. So you'll be very welcome in a very international community here at Cambridge. We're not far from London, so where Imperial is, so you can easily be there in 50 minutes by train. But we are in a small town. It still has that large city opportunities and the career support and prospects as well. We are ranked 5th in the world for employer reputation, for employability. I'm not going to go through this again because I've just explained the application process. I just wanted to highlight that our applications will open very soon, this week or next week. So watch out for that. And just to draw your attention to the application process, the first 2 steps I highlighted here. You can use the QR code to explore a bit about our courses. I know a lot of you were asking about which courses we offer. We do have 6 schools, so we have about 300 postgraduate courses on offer you can explore. And what I want to draw your attention to here is the funding deadline. So if you want to be considered for a scholarship here at Cambridge, you'll need to apply by December or by January, depending on the course. My advice is make sure you complete your application by December to maximize the chances of you getting one of the internal scholarships that we have here at Cambridge. And this is just a way you can find in the course directory whatever course you might be interested to study, like medicine or development studies, and then you just search that and you'll find more information about that, including the entry requirements. I want to focus a bit on the funding opportunities in the next couple of minutes before we wrap up. make sure in your application that you tick yes, I wish to apply for funding, and we want to encourage you to apply to all the funding you're eligible for. And don't be discouraged if you're unsuccessful. Just try again and try to learn from other students that have been successful, or just try and look for all the other opportunities. I know Catherine mentioned some of them. I just wanted to highlight that at Cambridge we have this funding database, and you can put your nationality in and search by department as well, by college. So just to draw your attention that apart from the doctoral training funding that Catherine was mentioning, we also have Cambridge Trust, which awards about 500 scholarships annually. We have the colleges and departments as well that you can also find in the postgraduate funding search I just showed you, and external scholarships, of course, like Chevening or Col Futuro in Colombia. But we also have this very prestigious scholarship that is a full scholarship here at Cambridge. It's called Gates, and it funds both master's and PhD courses, with some exceptions, especially in the business school area. But you can find the exceptions on the website. They offer about 75 full cost scholarships per year. And again, you'll have to apply by December/January deadline. You'll have to write a Gates Cambridge specific statement in addition to the personal statement I mentioned, and you also need a third reference, but you can find all of that on their website. They are looking at other selection criteria, such as your motivation for the course choice, the leadership capacity, and commitment to improving the lives of others. But I really recommend you look into it because it's an amazing opportunity to fully fund your studies here at Cambridge. And this slide is about other funding examples. So we have some full PhD scholarships, the Harding scholarships as well. We have some master's scholarships for students from Mexico called Brockman Cambridge Scholarship, and also scholarships for students from Brazil, the Jesus College Susana Scholarship, if you're interested in masters in areas connected to the environment, sustainability, ecology, or conservation. And then the Cambridge Trust I just mentioned. There are some other examples there. My message to you being that do look under all these scholarships, but also do look at specific departmental scholarships or specific college scholarships. For example, there's a full award in PhD molecular biology for the LMB Cambridge Scholarship, or there might be full scholarships at different colleges like Trinity College for the law scholarship. Make sure you do check this every year because this could change, the availability could change, and the key thing here is the deadline. So do check that. And finally, here are some resources. I'm going to put this in the chat so that it's easier for you to then take away. But if you want to sign up to our postgraduate mailing list, you can scan the QR code. And you can also talk to current students via the Unibody platforms, watch some recordings on more information about the application process, or join our virtual postgraduate open days in November as well. So I'll leave it there, and I think we can open the floor to questions.
Yes, we've had a few come through that I've been having a look at as we've kind of been going along. So I'll start just a couple of specific ones that I can answer quite quickly. So there's one around average living cost in the UK, and I'll share with you, Anna, in terms of anything specific to advise for Cambridge. So in terms of applying for that visa, you do need to demonstrate you have a certain level of funding per month available for at least 9 months, basically for the study time. And that is classed at the moment currently as £1,136 per month for studying outside of London, and £1,483 per month minimum for studying in London. However, what I would say is that we have kind of collated on Imperial's website, at least, the kind of average costs that our students actually spend. And I would say the average is a little bit more than that. So, that really is the minimum you are looking that you need to demonstrate in order to get your visa that you have access to. So I'd say you want to add a few hundred on top of that in terms of making sure you've really got that kind of buffer. I don't know if you want to add anything, Anna.
I think that's great. At Cambridge, we have developed a tool that if you put the course name, you can see how much it costs and then how much it is expected of you to have in terms of maintenance, like living costs. So I can share that link in the chat as well, and that will be much easier for you to estimate how much money you might need to have when you come to the UK.
Yeah, so as I said, yeah, on ours we've got it kind of broken down, average cost, but yeah, definitely, you know, kind of there is information out there. One very specific one, I don't know, I kind of can answer for Imperial, but I don't know if you'll have the answer, Anna, but just in case. So question around kind of applying for an MBA, needing a GMAT. So just in terms of general admissions, for most master's programs in the UK, you don't need a GMAT or a GRE test. But again, there's always those exceptions to the rule, and an MBA is one of those exceptions. So for Imperial, you would need either a GMAT or a GRE. So we wouldn't waive that. It would be a requirement for one or the other. And there may be a few other sort of specific programs, but generally it's mainly the MBA that would be asking for that. I don't know if you have that information, Anna.
I think it's the same for us, but like Catherine said, just make sure you check individual course guidance. And I don't think we require any GMAT, but again, you'll have to double check that. And I'm trying to send the link to the fees in the chat as well, at least for Cambridge.
That's, yeah, just a really good bit of advice in terms of, you know, we are very transparent around kind of the steps of the application, what you're looking for, and again, by individual programs. There was a question here about kind of seeing the content, you know, what you'll actually be studying, the modules, for example. Have a look by individual degree programs, and it will have the entry requirements, kind of, you know, if there are kind of additional steps. So again, for the business school, there may be things like needing to submit a resume or something like that, but it will be stated under the entry requirements. Question about student dorms. So I'll answer for Imperial and then pass over. So for graduate students, that is not kind of automatically part of kind of the experience to come in and get a place in halls of residence dorms at Imperial. However, we work with a provider called GradPad. So there are 2 sites in London where we have a kind of partnership where it's graduate only, sort of postgraduate students have access to study, so to live there with us. There is then kind of, if you do want more in dorm environment, that would be, you know, a good thing about being somewhere like London. There's a number of private providers that would set up a kind of more dorm experience, but they would be external. And then there is kind of the private sector as well. We have something called Imperial Home Solutions, which is basically a portal that gives information about student accommodation. But again, it's needing to do that research yourself and exploring, you know, your budgets, location, things like that yourself. Pass over to you, Anna.
Yes, so in terms of, I'm just mentioned we are a collegiate university, so our colleges do have postgraduate accommodation, but a lot of students tend to stay in private rented accommodation as well. So we do have an accommodation service that will help you with any questions you might have about that in case there's no availability for postgraduate accommodation in the college you have been allocated to.
Thank you. So question about coming with kind of a family. So that's often a question that comes up. So there was a change recently whereby if you're coming to study a master's, you can't bring dependents now on your international visa. However, if you're coming to do a PhD, then dependents are potentially an option to come. So in terms of actually arriving in the UK, it will depend if you're looking at a master's or a PhD, in terms of can, you know, your sort of family come with you on your student visa. Then in terms of actually kind of the universities, what support there might be available, we do kind of have, you know, kind of that support systems I talked about that will have elements that will look at supporting families. It's not necessarily that common for kind of international students to have families with them, but our international student support team, for example, will do a family day, you know, for you know, kind of students to meet other families. So there will be some provision to support. But at the same time, things like accommodation, for example, normally the kind of route would be for you to look at that yourself. I don't know if you have anything to add at all.
Just to say that some colleges do offer family rooms or shared flats as well. So again, you'll have to check that information and with the accommodation services as well.
Conscious of time, so just try and do a quick couple ones. So in terms of application fees, that will depend on the university and even you know, by programme in some respects. Imperial, for example, there's an application fee for the masters about £80, but not for a PhD, for example. So again, just do your research between them. How far in advance should the application process start? So Anna, you do want to kind of talk about your side of things?
Yeah, so I did mention in my presentation that we recommend you to start 1 year before you're due to start your studies. Like I said, if you want to start studying in October next year, the applications start in September for us. And if you want to also receive a scholarship or be eligible for being considered for a scholarship, you'll need to apply by the funding deadline, which is either December this year or January next year, depending on the course. So it takes about a year. The whole application process takes about a year, but that's not to say that during the summer before applications window starts, you can't, gather all this information, think about your personal statement and so on. So you can prepare even before the application window opens.
Really good advice. Earlier the better. Just to say, for Imperial, normally our application system opens up in the October, basically the year in advance. So yeah, you can start applying from that year in advance. Quick question around kind of staying in the UK after studies. So, things do change. So do kind of, check when you're coming to apply. The status at the moment is if you are doing a master's, then you can stay in the UK for a year and a half after you finish your studies as part of kind of your kind of study visa kind of setup, and you just change on to that different kind of visa status. For PhD, it's longer. However, after that, then it would be looking to be sponsored by an employer in the UK to stay. So at the moment, it is an option to spend a short time in the UK afterwards. Conscious of the time, I think we are pretty much on the hour now. So please do, follow up with us if you have kind of more specific questions. Our contact details are there. We have the QR codes for lots more information as well. But from me, I'd say thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you as well. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I was saying thank you very much, Catherine and Anna, for giving us all this important information for all the people who is thinking about starting an application process for their studies abroad. I know you guys still have a lot of questions, so I will encourage you to get in touch directly with Anna and with Catherine. Send them all your questions. Feel free to contact them and start your application processes, and don't forget to fulfill your dreams to study abroad. You just have to give the first step and then start and follow all the process to make it a reality. So thank you very much, ladies, once again for joining us today. We really hope to see you anytime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Best of luck with your
Yes,
applications.
good luck with
We
everything.
hope to see some of you on campus.
Yep.
Okay. Bye.